Hey, G here. I came over to go for a peaceful walk at the cemetery, and so I was thinking a lot about the holidays coming up and how I'm going to be alone for the holidays. Maybe a lot of you are going to be alone for the holidays, and how to really deal with the sadness that sometimes comes with being alone. You know. I can tell you on Christmas Day, I'm probably not going to be walking over to the cemetery here because I don't need to be more depressed. But actually, I don't find cemeteries to be depressing. But yeah, I don't really want to do that on Christmas. So anyway, stay tuned. I'm going to talk a little bit about what to do for the holidays when you're alone. Hey, I'm back home. So yeah. Being alone for the holidays, I spent a lot of holidays alone. From about 2002 up till 2020, probably, I was alone most of the holidays. Occasionally, I would take somebody up on an invitation and go to someone's house for Thanksgiving or Christmas, but I generally regretted that, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. But I did spend a lot of holidays alone, especially Thanksgiving. When I say holidays, I mean the Thanksgiving, Christmas season. So let's talk about, if you've spent holidays alone, you know what it's like. So I don't really need to tell you what that feels like. For me, everybody has kind of a different holiday that's the most difficult. For me, it's always Christmas. I don't mind being alone for Thanksgiving at all. Christmas Day or Christmas Eve especially is always a little tough. And the last few years when I was living in California, I actually did have somebody to spend that like Christmas Eve, Christmas Day with a lot of the time. So I wasn't as alone the last few years at Christmas. So this is going to be the first Christmas and Thanksgiving for me in a few years where I really am going to be alone again. So I've got to draw upon all my old strategies and things that I do that kind of helps me during that season. And that's what we're going to talk about in the video today. So the things that really are important to remember when you're going to be alone for the holidays is the first thing is don't try to make it like every other holiday when you were with your family. In other words, don't try to recreate it without the people there that you used to spend, that time with. It's just going to make it feel worse. It's not going to feel better because you're just going to notice the absence of those people even more. So I recommend you not try to recreate Christmases past, shall we say, like even from your childhood and stuff, because it will never be the same. Because it'll never be the same, it's actually could possibly depress you more. So I really recommend you don't do that. Instead, what I think is a really great way to spend Christmas is come up with your own new traditions for yourself. In other words, what would you like to do at Christmas? Let's use Christmas as an example, that you never did before. So maybe you travel to a place. Maybe you go away for a few days at Christmas time. Maybe you never really did that before. Maybe you decide to volunteer and do some volunteer work at Christmas because you never did that before and that feels rewarding to you. Or it might just be simple traditions that you do for yourself. Like maybe you don't put up a tree. Maybe you put up different kinds of decorations, like maybe just a wreath or put up some cedar boughs or something like that. Just anything that will be different than what you're used to. But do what just gives you joy. For me, I love looking at Christmas lights. That's a thing I've always loved about the holidays. And so I usually try to have, in the past number of years, I've had a little tree, and I might get a little tree this year, just like a pre-lit one, like 2 feet tall, something like that. And because I just love sitting and looking at the lights of it. So find something that's going to bring you joy that you want to recreate for yourself. The other thing is that the good thing about being alone at Christmas is you can eat, or even Thanksgiving, you can eat whatever you want. You don't have to take into account other people's tastes, or, maybe they have things they can't eat or things like that. So just have what you want to have for the holidays. Make it like the thing you love to eat the most. Doesn't have to be a traditional dinner. I'm not having turkey on Thanksgiving, but I'm having the fixins that normally go with turkey instead. So I'm not having the meat, but I'm having everything else. Because turkey's not that important to me. And I don't even really, it's possible if I have a car by the time Thanksgiving comes around that I might run and go just get like a rotisserie chicken and have that with it. But no, turkey, I don't need to make a turkey. So for me, that's not important. And because I'm not cooking for anyone else, I don't need to do that. So that's one thing that's really important. The other thing is spend the day how you want to spend the day. If you want to spend Thanksgiving or Christmas or, anything around Christmas, and you just want to spend a day in your jammies, sitting on the couch watching movies, then do it. If you want to spend the day just reading a book, do it. If you want to go out for a long walk by yourself, do it. So the nice thing is, again, you don't have to plan around anyone else. And this is the thing I actually find joyful about being alone at the holidays, is you can just do anything you want to do. If the Christmas thing is too upsetting for you and you don't even want to deal with it, then sit and watch a bunch of movies that are definitely not Christmas movies. In other words, just get your mind completely off what the day is. Now, if you're a very religious person and church is an important part of the holiday, then go to church. There's nothing wrong with going to church alone. And you might know people there. Maybe you won't know people there. But, if that means a lot to you, then do that. And there's just no end to what you can think of for new traditions for yourself, new ways you want to spend the holidays. And the important part is to empower yourself to do this. In other words, you're giving yourself the power to plan your own type of holiday. Yes, there may not be people around for it, but just do what makes you happy, what brings you joy, or at least doesn't make you sad. You may have to just try to do anything that is avoid getting too depressed at that time. So do that. Now, back to what I was saying earlier about how one of the things I don't recommend to people, I'm sure some people enjoy this, but I think most people don't, is you might get invitations to go spend Christmas or Thanksgiving with people you don't know very well. Now, if it's people you do know really well, like your best friend invites you over, that's different. If that would make you happy, go do that. But I'm talking about people that might just be acquaintances or, friend lights. In other words, they're not like, really, really good friends, but they might take pity on you and say, oh, would you come over and, have Thanksgiving with us or have Christmas with us? I personally find that that's a disaster. I've done a few of those, and I vowed after the last one I was never going to do it again. Nothing made me more depressed than going to someone else's house where they've got their family, and you're like the outsider, poor orphan sitting at the table. It's just, I find it very, very depressing. And I would rather be alone, eating what I want to eat that day, than go to someone else's house that isn't a good friend or a family member. So if you get an invitation, go at your own peril is what I would say, because a lot of times I think it makes you feel worse. So that would be my suggestions to avoid being so sad during the holidays that you spend alone. If you're going to be solo for the holidays, try to make the best of it, the most of it that you can for yourself. Don't make yourself feel worse by putting yourself in situations that might trigger a lot of loss about, the people you don't have around you anymore, or, your lost youth or whatever it is that might trigger you. Just avoid those things. and do the things that will just make you, quietly happy. Like sitting there in a room with some candles and the Christmas lights on, and you just enjoy the mood of that. That's what brings me joy. So do the things that bring you joy, and try to avoid the rest. So I wish you all the best for the holidays coming up. Find the thing that works best for you, and make it the best solo holiday you can. Take care. Bye.